This is Adam Thomas.
Hunter Stevenson.
And Michael Jernigan.
Our project is titled China Timber's Black Hole, and it deals with the connection between China's massive economic growth and global forestry. Our goals here will be to first demonstrate the linkages between China's booming middle class and its effects on the global wood products demand, and second, to discuss what this increased demand means for global wood product supply. What are the long-term consequences? Lastly, what are some current and future forestry policies that can help deal with this new economic reality? Without further ado, we will begin and we hope you enjoy the show. Today, China accounts for roughly 19% of the world's population with over 1.3 billion people, and it continues to grow. Fortunately, China's population growth rate has dramatically decreased since the 1960s. Looking at a graph with future projections of China's growth rate, it can be seen that China's population will increase to about 1.45 billion by the year 2025, and then slowly begin to decline if the constant fertility variant, which is represented by the gray line on the graph, continues. The promotion of one-child families began in the 1960s because China's population was growing so quickly that it posed a threat of mass starvation. With this program, the government provides contraceptives, sterilizations, and abortions for married couples. Also, married couples that pledge to have only one child receive benefits such as better housing, more food, free health care, salary bonuses, and job opportunities for their child. As a result of this program, China has cut its birth rate in half, and its total fertility rate, as seen in the graph, has dropped from 5.7 to 1.5. The second contributing factor of China's reduced population growth is due to economic development. Since 1980, China has experienced rapid industrialization and economic growth due to the rise and expansion of small and medium enterprises. In 2005, small and medium enterprises accounted for 60% of China's GDP and 3/4 of total employment in urban areas. As a result of this growth, China has a high consumption rate of natural resources, and with continued growth, projections indicate a great potential of rising consumption patterns. Even though China has taken control of its population growth and experienced economic development, a problem still remains. With the largest population in the world and an economy that continues to grow rapidly, China's demand for Earth's natural resources increases in order to satisfy its growing wants. This, of course, leads to the degradation of Earth's natural resources unless China pursues a path toward economic development that is more sustainable. At this time, we'll go to Michael Jernigan, who will tell us about China's role in the global wood products market.
Thank you, Adam. China is clearly on its way to being a dominant world power. Now we've looked at China's population and economic growth, let's turn our attention to the global wood products market and China's impact on this market. I know economics and market analysis is not considered an exciting topic by most, so this will be some pretty dull material for many of you. Mr. Stevens' material will be much more interesting, so hang in there with me. The global wood products market accounts for almost 470 billion of global GDP. While that sounds like a lot, the traditional wood products industry accounts for a small percentage of global GDP, or around 1%, and this percentage is decreasing. This is mostly due to growth in other sectors which possess higher value-added margins. This graph helps demonstrate forestry sector's contribution to the global marketplace. The graph on the left looks at the changes in the gross value of the forestry sector over the past 16 years. The graph on the right shows how the sector's contribution to the global marketplace has changed. It must be pointed out, of course, that these figures shown in the graph do not include non-traditional forest products such as biochemicals, edible products, medicinal products, and others. This is, of course, a common problem that we've discussed in class, which is that forests are undervalued. If we were to add these values into the graphs, the forest products sector would have a higher contribution to world GDP. But I digress. Try and stay with me here as more graphs are on the way. No falling asleep. Now, regardless, the wood products market, like other natural resource markets, remains a huge part of developing states' economies. Additionally, despite a decrease in forest products' contribution to global GDP, the market has seen steady growth, and this is great news for forestry majors. While global wood consumption has only grown by 0.4% per year between 1980 and 2007, wood product consumption has experienced a steady growth of 3.2% per year over the same period. This is good news as it points to an increase in the efficiency of wood-saving techniques such as recycling. Try not to worry too much about this graph. Its purpose is simply to provide a visual aid to demonstrate the growth trends in both wood consumption and wood products consumption we have just discussed. As I mentioned, growth in wood products consumption is outpacing growth in wood consumption. Now, enough about the market itself. What does China have to do with all this? Well, China has seen a massive increase in their wood imports. Over the period of 1997 to 2007, China's imports of wood quadrupled, and this growth is expected to continue. As this boring and colorless graph shows, there's an increasing gap between demand and supply in China. This huge increase in demand is a result of the rising income per capita discussed by my colleague Adam. Additionally, the growth in the global marketplace also plays a role, as this leads to an increase in demand for exports of finished wood products from China. Domestic production remained fairly constant from 1988 to 2006, mostly due to forest conservation policies that have been implemented in China to reduce domestic environmental degradation. These conservation policies have limited domestic production, and while domestic production is expected to increase, it will likely not be enough according to current predictions. Imports will have to increase threefold to meet rising demand. China is the world's second largest timber importer behind Japan as of 2006 and the single greatest importer of industrial round wood. Much of this imported wood is reprocessed into products which are then exported for profit. China exported over $5.2 billion in forest products in 2004, which was triple the amount exported in 1990. Southeast Asia, Russia, and Africa currently supply over 75% of China's forestry-related imports. As demand increases, tropical regions of Southeast Asia and Africa, as well as Russia, would all increase their exports to China by 60% or more. Now, this does not mean a 60% increase in forestry production, as much of these increased exports will be offset by decreased exports elsewhere. Regardless, we can expect pressure on these regions to increase forestry production to meet global demand. As many states in these regions already possess vulnerable forest resources, this could spell difficulties for conservation efforts. To discuss the big picture and what all these economic facts and figures mean from a much more important environmental context, we turn to Hunter Stevenson.
China's economy, without a doubt, is affecting forests everywhere. China's actions leave an ecological footprint that can be seen around the world, degrading and destroying high conservation value forests. As you can see by this graph, in the past 10 years, China's energy consumption has been steadily growing, reaching over $4 trillion worth in 2011. Luckily, other countries that previously had policies and methods of forestry are able to effectively export to China without large, unexpected impacts on the environment. However, countries with no previous experience in large-scale logging and timber exportation are now struggling to find sustainable methods of doing so. Nevertheless, a massive loss of trees anywhere worsens climate change. According to the Stern Review, deforestation contributes to almost 20% of global carbon emission. This percentile is more than that from transportation or even industrial manufacturing. Luckily, however, China has increased their forest area as to support their exponentially rising need for trees. As you can see by this picture, from 1990 to 2010, China's gain in forest cover has been almost 50%, much more than any other country. To compound environmental issues, due to new paper production machines like this one that rely exclusively on wood fiber pulp rather than non-wood pulp and waste paper, China's consumption of wood pulp is rising, as is the importation rate. This is causing rapid reduction of China's forests. Additionally, the exporting countries with weaker policies, such as Southeast Asia, Russia, and Latin America, are exporting more pulp to China than they can sustain, and are struggling with the environmental impacts. Every year since at least 2001, China's consumption of MDF, plywood, and particle board has been rising. Much of the wood is imported illegally, escaping regulations and policies of which exporting countries and China have tried to put in place. This timber undermines efforts to reduce ecological footprint. It is cheaper for consumers, adding to the difficulty to get consumers on board with eco-friendly procedures and wood. This brings about the issue of policies. In 2000, China's State Council approved 6 national key forest programs. These programs are the Natural Forest Protection Program, the Shelter Belt Development Program, the Sloping Land Conservation Program, the Sand Control Program for area in the vicinity of Beijing, the Wildlife Conservation and Nature Reserve Development Program, and the Forest Industrial Base Development Program. These programs were a great step in the direction towards a cleaner environment. For example, the logging bans under the Natural Forest Protection Program had enormous potential to reduce the footprint of timber industry inside China itself. According to FAO reports in 2005, deforestation in East Asia reported a decline in wood removal thanks to the logging banned by the Natural Forest Protection Program. Forest resources and the ecosystem in East Asia have improved over 10 years. Forest areas and forest cover have increased and biodiversity has improved in regions affected by the Natural Forest Protection Program. Nevertheless, policies and laws are not always strongly enforced. Illegal logging still continues and is often financed and conducted by organized groups of criminals and mafias with high-level connections. This sign in Nongdao, China reads, "Crossing the border to log is prohibited." All of these pictures are of illegally cut logs from Burma, near Chinese customs, official Chinese checkpoints, and entering China illegally. Actions to stop this have been made, however. The G8 countries have developed an action program on illegal logging, encouraging countries to implement and enforce more regulations. Almost 100 countries have agreed to the Forest Law Enforcement and Governance in hopes to actively fight illegal logging. As you can see, China's economy has an immense impact on the world's forests today. It is growing in population size and in turn demand, causing adverse effects on the environment. Conservation of trees and their resources seems nearly impossible with the rate of use. By implementing policies, China does aim to reduce its impact on the global economy of timber. But will that be enough?